If you are among the millions around the world that spent their childhood playing the Super Mario on the NES back in the 80s, you'd know that video games have been around for a while. But what was once considered a luxurious hobby back in the day is now one of the world's most sought after and favorite pastimes. And what was once an industry of not much significance now dwarfs major movie industries and other entertainment medium. For a niche that saw an early demise in one of its key markets in the form of the great video game crash of 1983, and then to be revived by a Japanese toy company, the industry has had quite the run. But how did we get here? How did Fortnite end up being a worldwide phenomenon? How did the biggest acquisition deal in entertainment history in recent times happen in the video game sphere? And most importantly, how did Indian moms who once saw the devil in video games start borrowing our controllers to let off some steam? Let's take a deep dive and relive the fascinating journey of the video games industry to find the answers. Hi, I'm Ishaq, and this is the iXie Gaming Podcast. When we look at the history of video games, there are a few things that stand out as key factors for the growth of the industry. The constant need for innovation, the leverage provided by the internet, the ever-exploding indie and mobile markets, and of course, corporations that oversee major game developments and sales. But first, let's get down to the basics. Let's talk about the things that fuel the early evolution in games. The need for innovation and the steady advancements in technology over time. Break it down even further and we get to the very core of the process of creating a video game, which is problem solving. No, I get it. Problems arise in all businesses and they are solved. It's a typical day at the office in any industry. But in the process of making a game, that is taken to a whole new level. Let's look at the final few months of a game development process, for instance. No game has ever come together when its core components and mechanics have been put together, no matter how complex the code. There will always be bugs. And the home stretch of any game, which may be a few months or a year depending on the type of game, is ironing out those bugs and coming up with solutions for it. Some solutions come in the form of adding something new to the game. Some may result in the removal of a feature, and some may end up accidentally creating a whole new genre. How a solution is found to a problem completely depends on the type of game, the nature of the problem, and how the developers approach the issue and innovate ideas for the solution. This is primarily the reason, among others, why some of the mechanics in a demo released 9 months ago don't make it to the final game. And in a lot of cases, this is the reason some big games release in an unfinished state. They are technically completed, but all the issues need to be ironed out, which takes a good few months, which those games do months after release. My point is that the process of problem solving is ever present and is second nature within the process of making a game. And the rapid evolution of the industry is a combination of this problem solving nature, the need to innovate, and the aid of technology of the time that help fuel that innovation. Let me elaborate. Remember those days on the NES where we were required to input a secret code in order to continue the game from a certain point? That was the solution for a save system on home consoles, a problem which did not exist until home consoles became a product. This solution then evolved into a file created by the game to be stored on memory cards. You remember those? As save files in games started getting bigger, they were managed in system integrated hard disks, and we now use the cloud to store our save files, all while having the convenience of portability should be needed. Those cartridges we used on the old Nintendo systems made way for the CD, and as graphics started getting better with the shift from 2D to 3D, alongside game mechanics getting more complex and nuanced, this demanded more space, and the CD evolved into much higher capability discs like the DVD, all while games started getting even more complex and graphically demanding over time. But these events mostly entailed the early days of video games, up to sometime in the mid-2000s, and the industry was progressing steadily, still evolving much faster than movies or any other medium, but nothing compared to today's standards. There was a catalyst that technology had given birth to. the internet. Although from around the 90s, internet was not significant enough until the early 2000s for developers to find a way to exploit the technology in the games they make. PC and consoles of the time were already exploring networked multiplayer through various systems. Something very special was brewing, and the potential seemed unlimited. Predicting a stronger internet infrastructure, console manufacturers made consoles that transacted using the internet like never before. Game developers leveraged the internet to publish the games without the need of discs. Soon enough, patches for release games became a common thing, and microtransactions were introduced to further enhance the longevity of a release game. Now, how microtransactions were handled in the early days, or still being handled now, is something we have covered extensively, so we won't be discussing that here now. Do check out our blog on loot boxes and how it affects the industry on our website. So, coming back to the internet, games were given new life with complete chapters and segments now releasing in the form of DLCs. And over time, a new breed of games were introduced in the form of live services and free-to-play games. All of this was happening while new development tools and game engines emerged. Advanced physics systems, complex lighting, and lifelike character models were becoming the norm. Platforms like Steam rose to dominate the conversation, and yearly iterations of graphic cards was something to look forward to. In many cases, ideas that were born as solutions had evolved into business models. The availability of game engines, the development-friendly pricing, and readily available learning tools saw the rise of indie game developers, resulting in an onslaught of smaller yet innovative games. In retrospect, we can see that the industry has grown many folds in the last 15 years than it ever did in its first 25 or so years, thanks to the internet and the leverage it provided. And this breakneck pace shows no sign of stopping. So this is how the inherent aid of technology and the nature of problem solving had helped the industry evolve. But there is another key component that fuels all of this. The side of game development that is as ruthless as it is essential, the business aspect of the games. As a person who knows a thing or two about game development and the industry, I can tell you that creating and selling a game are two completely different beasts. An individual or a company should learn and understand both aspects in order to be successful. This is the reason why many passionate developers fail, and this is also the reason how some mediocre games make big time money. While we are discussing this, do check out our blog on the dichotomy between game creators and publishers for a detailed outlook on this matter. It's on our website. Development studios from the 90s and the early 2000s who understood this stand tall today as giant corporations with high-paid business executives that can rival any industry overlooking the business aspect of things. While this may have resulted in some fan-favorite projects being cancelled and microtransactions being shoehorned in franchises that did not have them before, the reality is that these corporations play a big part in the growth of the industry. Now, mobile may not be a platform that gamers are very proud of or like discussing it, but it has become one of the key revenue generating platforms for the industry consistently over the years. As a result, we see corporations throwing in big franchises on the platform. The sheer accessibility of the mobile platform has also resulted in thousands, if not millions of studios making mobile games, which in turn spawned whole new demographics that play those games. Say what you will about corporations, but most of them provide the required resources and legroom for developers to get their ideas on screen. The industry may not be as big and flamboyant as it is today, if not for these big companies and their sometimes controversial business decisions made over the years. But no big company can ever accomplish anything if not for its consumers. And gamers, as we all know, are some of the most passionate and vocal among any group of consumers. From the ones who are now in their 40s who used to play in the arcades, to their children who now play Fortnite, gamers have always been passionate about the games they play. So much so that pledging allegiances to a platform or a franchise and creating conversations over those games to the point of toxicity is common practice, and this passion is very real. Now, companies have been able to exploit this loyalty for years, but thanks to social media platforms, big corporations have also faced the brunt of a passionate community when they go overboard with shady mechanics. We all know the Star Wars Battlefront 2 debacle, the release of an unfinished Assassin's Creed Unity, or Mass Effect Andromeda. These have been instances where the companies have learned something. While conversations of business practices and some decision making still persist to this day, the games industry today has matured quite a bit and is more in tune with its fan base than any other industry. And it is better for it. We saw a company as huge as Microsoft reverse their decision to hike the price of Xbox Live Gold subscriptions. We saw Sony revert their decision on shutting down PS3 and PS Vita's digital stores. EA has its faith back in single-player games thanks to Jedi Fallen Order. Oh, and Battlefront 2? After having its paid loot boxes removed and rebalancing the game, now has a strong community of players that still follow the game 4 years after the release. Gamers are unlike any customer base from any other industry. We are a smart, vocal and passionate bunch, well, mostly, whose love for the game has been responsible for spearheading this amazing industry that is now worth over $100 billion. Video games now are a product of rapid evolution that shows no sign of stopping. A typical big budget game today is a culmination of acting, music, and writing with technical wizardry that brings them all to life. The barrier for entry has been lifted significantly to gaming, and there is something for everyone in this gigantic ocean of genres and platforms to choose from. I mean, it's really cool to see my mom try to beat my daughter's record on Cut the Rope during her break from the soap operas. If it isn't evident yet, the industry is not going to stop innovating or evolving. Games are going to look even better with each release. We will probably be playing on a lot more devices in the future, and services like Game Pass are going to thrive. But that is just the immediate future. What innovation will change or disrupt the industry in the next 5 years? Nobody knows. And it will be very interesting to see what happens. So, what is your take on the games industry? How long have you been playing games, and what is your favorite game or genre? Let's have this conversation going down in the comments. And I'll see you in the next podcast. Until then, I'm Ishaq, and this has been the iXie Gaming Podcast. You take care, stay safe, and keep gaming.